So remember earlier in our presentation today, there was a series of questions asked about different subjects. One was about anger, another was about free will, and so forth, right? And in each case, the asking of the question demonstrates that the truth about that subject has yet to enter my soul. Because if the truth about that subject has entered our soul, there's no more need to ask questions about the subject. Now that makes sense, doesn't it, from a logical perspective? Like if you knew everything there was to know about building a car engine, then you would be able to build a car engine from scratch, even if that meant manufacturing the parts and everything else, and you'd know what to do, you'd know what materials you'd need, you'd know where to get them from, you'd know everything about the subject. And once you know everything that there is to know about a particular subject, then you can do quite easily, can't you? You can create quite easily. Everything changes from that time. Now, we could argue that many of us don't know everything there is to know about any particular one subject, but the reality is if you had 1,000 years to learn about a car engine, do you think after 1,000 years you'd know a fair bit about it? Well, of course you would. Most guys on the planet, my own father knows a fair bit about engines generally. He's worked on them all of his life. And he's now, I think he's turning 70 I think it's a few days' time actually. His birthday's in December or January, I can't quite remember which because he doesn't celebrate his birthday. But he's 70 years of age, and for a good 50, 60 years of his life, he's spent working on car engines. So he has a pretty good working knowledge of those particular things. Imagine if you added another 1,000 years onto that. By the end of that, you'd know a fair bit about the whole subject, wouldn't you? About how far you could go with an internal combustion engine. And as a result of that knowledge, we can absorb and be familiar with all the knowledge, but we can also create quite well once we have that particular knowledge. Now, my father, in his desire to understand the engine, never felt any fear about the subject. I've seen my father be so absorbed with an engine, in this case a model aeroplane engine, that he actually stuck his finger through the propeller while it was going in order to adjust the fuel. And he finished up ring-barking 2 of his fingers and having to have 70-something stitches to put all the skin back on and flesh back on from those 2 fingers, just because he was so absorbed in the subject, or you could say also a little spirit influenced in the subject, obviously, to be so out of his body and not be aware that this screaming engine was still going in front of him while he was putting his hand through it. But he was so absorbed in the subject that he could even do something like that. He had no fear at all of that blade spinning around at 15,000 revolutions every minute. No fear at all. Didn't cross his mind. But that's what sometimes the passion does, isn't it? Like, you don't have any fear at all. And sometimes we take that to an extreme on our planet. We don't even have any sense of ourselves as a result of that. But obviously, if we were connected with ourselves, we'd at least have a sense of ourselves. But we often have no fear about any subject that we desire passionately to investigate. And I put to you that if we have fear about receiving divine truth, then we may not be as passionate about the subject as what we believe. Can you see that? Because why would you have fear about something that's going to transform your life into something beautiful? Obviously, we don't think it's going to transform our life into something beautiful. That's why we have the fear associated with it. Can you see? So what we need to start doing with regard to this subject of truth, the whiteboard's just not wanting to come off, is it? The reason why what we need to do is we need to start questioning ourselves to a degree here. So we need to ask ourselves questions about what is really our passion and desire when it comes to truth? Do we have a passionate longing for it if we have so much fear surrounding it? So the question we need to ask ourselves is this: can desire and fear be in harmony if we long for truth? So if we really, really want truth, can we desire it and fear it at the same time? Is what I'm asking. And if I fear it, can I see that that must be hugely limiting my opening of my own soul? Can you see that? Now, if my soul has to be opened by truth in order for me to receive divine love, and if divine love is the transforming power of the soul, then can you see that unless I open the door to divine love flowing, I am forever consigned to be the limit of what I can be, the finite creation that I was originally created as, the sixth dimensional being. That's as far as I can go with my development. Can you also see that unless I'm willing to open the door to God's truth about every single subject, including my own condition, I am limiting the flow of divine love into my own soul. I am using my will, my free will, we often call it, that God gave us to use. I'm using my will to stop or prevent or resist the flow of love into my soul.